past 5:30, so I'll call tonight's EDA meeting to order. And Karen, can we have a roll call, please?
Ooh, sorry. Commissioner Roberts?
Here.
Commissioner Huntash? Commissioner Lorge?
Here.
Commissioner Erickson? Commissioner Finneman? Commissioner Husnick?
Here.
And President Bain.
Here. I'd like to invite everyone to rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Members of the EDA, we have an agenda before you tonight for approval. I will entertain a motion or any changes.
I move we approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? And our agenda is approved. Our next item this evening is to approve the minutes of our regular meeting from March 28th, 2022. And I'll entertain a motion or any changes.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? And agenda, or the meeting minutes are approved. Our next item this evening is the Size Up Business Analytics. And Dan, do you want to start us with this?
Sure thing. President, members of the EDA, just one second, let me get that. If Karen can get me that set up. Here today to provide a little bit of background on the Washington County CDA's new program, Size Up Small Business. Just want to say, I've looked at this. This was launched, was it 2 weeks ago? Went through the first training on it. And this is a very exciting project or product when you look at it. It's hot off the presses, so I haven't spent a ton of time going through the actual getting under the hood of it, but I have done some initial work on this with this platform. And it does provide some really detailed market analysis for business. And if you look at what Size Up Small Business offers, historically, this level of data, this level of analysis has typically been reserved for larger companies who have business analysts on staff. They've really sized up, and I've looked at it, really leveled the playing field, and now it gives that really detailed analysis, that level of data to small and medium-sized businesses. So local businesses now have access to the same level of data sets that your larger corporations have. So this actually is really, really exciting data platform to have available here in the city. One thing to note when you kind of look at any type of data project is sort of take the data a little bit with a grain of salt. The data that's in here is only as current as the data set that they have. So when you really get that local knowledge behind it and you start looking at, on the competition side, for example, they may have some competitors that are listed that may no longer be in business. That's not that they didn't, the data set that they have is out of date, because once the data is published, if a business moves come in place, that data then gets out of date. They do work updates into this data, but I don't recall what the actual data update schedule was for it.
It's probably like every 6 months.
So, yeah, if you're looking at 6 months, so if somebody moves into the city of Forest Lake, they won't be present for 6 months. Some of the employment numbers that are in here are going to be a little bit behind, so they always lag behind a little bit. But overall, the data in here, from what I can tell, is accurate, and it provides a very good start for when you start doing the analysis there. Like I mentioned before, I'm just going to give a high-level overview. Haven't yet looked at all of the stuff that's in here. There is a ton of information on this platform. So I'll just kind of go through top level as to what's here. So to get to the website or the site, you'll see the URL was listed in the memo that was sent out, but it is hosted on the eastmetromsp.org site, which is the CDA's economic development site. If you click on the under business, the Size Up Small Business tab takes you here. And one of the things that you can do with this is you can compare your business to other industry competitors. So why you'd want to do that is to take a look at how is my business how is my business in the current marketplace? How am I competing? Am I competitive? Am I exceeding what the average is? Am I below? Is room for improvement, et cetera? And there are a lot of different market segments that are here, different business types that are represented. For this example, I just took restaurants, since we all understand restaurants, and it's pretty easy to kind of to do that for a market comparison. So in this search box here, you type in restaurants, you type in the location as Forest Lake, then you click on next. And what you get here is you get a nice dashboard that says you have 4 options. Measure your business performance, so you can compare it to industry competitors. You can look for customers, suppliers, and competitors. So if you're looking, where are my customers coming from? Where can I find additional customers? If you're a wholesaler, where can you sell to? If you need suppliers, you can find suppliers on this site. It also allows you to optimize your marketing and advertising. If you're looking for what market segments or what geographic areas you want to target your marketing to, this does provide some of that level of analysis. And then the demographics side, it also allows you to analyze the demographics, which comes into play if you're looking for, if you have a specific business segment that needs a specific demographic, you can target that based on location. So we look at measure your business performance. It'll ask you a few questions right off the bat. First is what's your annual revenue? For this example, I typed in $1 million for a restaurant. And you see, based on the results here, is that the average restaurant within the city of Forest Lake pulls in $2.7 million per year. Compare that to the county, you have 2.8, the metro 2.5. So what you're seeing is that the county and the city are actually pulling in more revenue in the restaurant business compared to the metro average, which means that, it's a good location to locate a restaurant in. You have state level analysis, which is at 2.2 million, and nationally 2.1. So what's nice is you can start to do market segment comparisons. You can say, what's the city, how's it compared to the county, the region, the state, and nationally. So you can kind of get a really good cross-section of market segment on this platform. You can also enter in the year that you started. This is important when you look at the survival rate of businesses. You can take a look at, if you started this in 2015, it'll tell you how many within the industry started in the city, which in particular instance, 1 started, how many in the county at 22, and then 322 within the metro. So you can start to kind of see was there sort of an influx of that particular industry in the year that you started? So you can kind of get a look at, who else is sort of in that same boat from a company aging standpoint. You can also type in the salary of your workers. For this particular example, I put $25,000 in. This is important if you're looking at, if you have recruitment issues and you're trying to say, where do I need to be in my segment to recruit and retain talent? This provides you with some level of idea of what the competition or what the market segment is paying. So here what you see is at $25,000, we're actually above market in this example, with the county being at $20,000 and the metro being at $23,000. Now, I don't know, I'm assuming for this one, it's not inclusive of tips. I don't know, I haven't seen the actual numbers behind it. This is just aggregated data at the top. But it gives you at least an idea of what the wages are in that industry. It also gives you an employee count. So if you put your employee count in, for this particular example, I put 5 in. And as you can see, well below industry average. So here you have the industry average for restaurants at 17. This does stay pretty consistent throughout the spectrum here. And then you can take a look at how many employees per capita you employ, cost effectiveness, so how much revenue does that employee generate based on the total employees you have based on your total revenues. And then revenues per capita. So again, some of this stuff I have not delved into and really got the great explanation on it, but just want to kind of show that there's a lot of robust data analysis that's included in here. You can also look at turnover. This is something where if you're new to the industry, you can kind of get an idea of what the turnover is going to be for the particular industry. So if you're developing a business plan, you can kind of anticipate, based on this example, turnover rate's 13%. So if I hire 10 people, 1.3, would potentially need to be replaced on an annual basis, just based on turnover rates. Job change, you can take a look at how many jobs in the specific industry were gained in a year, how many were lost, and what the net job change was for that particular job sector. And you can also, if you want to compare healthcare costs and work comp costs, that also is available here. So you get a really robust package when it comes to taking your particular inputs and comparing those to industry averages for your industry. Additionally, you can also take a look at the competition. So here you can look at if you're new to an area, you can take a look at who am I gonna compete with? So if I open up a restaurant in Forest Lake, what are my competitors gonna be? And what you see here on the map, it'll actually bring up all of the competitors within the city, and you can kind of get an idea of where they are geographically, as well as get a listing on the left-hand side there. So any place you see a dot here, that's a competitor that's, listed within the city. And if you look closely on this one, you can see that the data does lag behind a little bit, as Mallory's is not listed as a restaurant down there, so that's probably a couple years old in terms of what they have here. But again, it does provide a starting point for data analysis on here. If you're a business coming in, if you combine this with some local knowledge, like reach out to the chamber and say, how accurate is this? You can really get a better kind of field verify those data sets. But you can take a look if the market's saturated, from a competition standpoint. You can also look at customers. So if you are in the business of saying you sell to other businesses, you can look at what are my potential customers within the area. So for here, this example, I switched it over to a hardware. So let's say you sell to hardware stores. You can pull up a listing of all the hardware stores in the area, so you can start to look at a list of who would my potential customers be. And you can see here, there's a list here that you can take a look at. And again, this would help to if a business is looking for a location with which to site to be kind of centrally located amongst their customers, they'll be able to do some of that analysis work right here within the platform. Same thing on the supplier side. So if you are supplying businesses, if you need somebody to supply your business, you can take a look. It's the same example of hardware. Actually, no, this one is metal stamping. So let's just say you need metal products. You can take a look at who does metal stamping within the area. So you can take a look at who your suppliers are. There are a lot of manufacturers that want to be closer to their suppliers. And again, here you can get a good visualization of who the suppliers are for a particular area. On the advertising side, so let's say you start your business in Forest Lake and you kind of want to know where's my best dollar spend for advertising. So what this does is this pulls in by zip code by city the total revenues brought in the restaurant industry. So where do those restaurant dollars come from? So as you see here, 80,000 to 85,000 are coming from within Forest Lake. Second is from Hugo, and third from Chisago. So if you're going to do a targeted advertising campaign, if you want to hit that market, you'd look at Forest Lake first, Hugo second, and Chisago. So that's where your best spend is for your advertising dollars based on the revenues that you're getting from each particular area. And then finally, the demographics. This here allows you to take a look at this right here is the actual city of Forest Lake. It lets you look at the population, and then it breaks it down in age distribution, gender, and not only does current, it also does projected. So if you need to project out 5 years what the population is going to be, it'll also give you that projection as well. One nice thing about this is that it also allows you to go around an address. So if you want to type in, say, the city of Forest Lakes, this building here, and you want to try to find total population within 25 miles, it'll actually create a circle on the map of everything within 25 miles, and it'll change the population total as a result of that. Now, this is not drive time 25 miles. This is an aerial circle that's 25 miles. So take that, it does not have that within 25 minutes. It's just a mile circle that's there. But it'll give you geographically what the total demographic breakdown is within a specific distance. And if you wanted to, you can also do within a boundary. You can create specialty maps, really kind of break that down if you're really trying to drill down on a specific area from a different demographic standpoint. So when you look at this site in total, what you have here is, a lot of the information that's here. When a small business is first starting, one of the first things they need to do is create a business plan. And sometimes trying to find that data can be difficult. You have to go to a lot of different sources. This really is a one-stop shop for all of your business data. So you go into a bank and they say, what's your target market? You can say within 25 miles, I have X number of people within this specific market share. You can pull that here. You can also look at the competition. You can pull, some projected revenue. So you can kind of gauge do I want to get into this business here? You can start to look at revenue streams, advertising, et cetera. So From a business standpoint, this does provide a lot of detail and a lot of data that I think will be extremely beneficial for the small businesses that are there. I don't, like I said, I'm gonna continue to kind of play with this and look at this a little bit more to figure out, get under the hood a little bit more, so to speak. I've only had this for a couple of weeks. Really, I'm bringing this to the EDA tonight just to make everybody here aware of it. So if you're out talking to businesses, you can say there's a new tool on the Washington County CDA site. If you're looking for some market analytics, this is a great place to start. If I recall, I think SizeUp was offering, if they had specific questions, they had some support as well that we could interface. I recall from that meeting we were on. Is that right, Chris? So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions on this, but this again was more just for an EDA introduction to the new site.
Thank you, Dan. Any questions from members of the EDA?
I just have a comment. I was telling Chris I spent several hours on this afternoon when I saw it pop up on the agenda. I think any citizen looking for work also would love to get in here because the links to companies and job sites are fantastic. The demographics can be used by several organizations in the county and Forest Lake. I sum right off the top of my head the different foundations and the different organizations that need to know the population, the income distribution, and then businesses. I think it's fantastic, just fantastic. I love it. Is this a canned program or is this something Washington County had made up?
So, Chair Bain and Commissioner Lords, this is actually the first that I'm aware of that anybody in Minnesota has used this program, but it is a nationally, they're based out of Texas, but it is a nationally available resource that we just recently subscribed to in the last month. And the CDA really wanted to make this available to those businesses, as Dan mentioned, that are planning or comparing themselves, or how do you find talent and what do you need to have for a wage to be able to attract talent and keep them. And so it was a resource that we wanted to provide at no additional cost to the business to say, if you have to hire or find somebody to do this analysis, it could cost you thousands of dollars. We wanted to make it available at no cost to the businesses. And what I really wanted to encourage businesses to do is to sit down with Tyler Hilsebeck with the Open to Business program, and he'll help you with this. He'll help you navigate it and help you write your business plan as well. So it's one more tool in our toolbox that we can use to help attract and retain our small businesses here in the county. I'm not aware of anybody else that's doing it in Minnesota.
It's very user-friendly.
Thank you.
So I didn't have any problem navigating, but as far as, actually punching in numbers, not my thing.
Chris or Dan, so other than census data, where are they, are businesses being sent surveys? Like, where are they getting the information about what they're doing in sales and revenue?
That's a great question. You'd be surprised at how much information is available out there online, but a lot of this is just available by supercomputers and algorithms, and it's kind of scary to know that every time you swipe your credit card, somebody's tracking that information and they know exactly what you spent, where you live, what you bought, how much you make. And so all of that information is tabulated, and what they do is they'll take all of those bits and pieces of information and put it in one spot and allow us to use it for planning purposes. It doesn't get into specifics about the name of the individual, of course, that when you swipe your card, that information is not available, but there's a pretty comprehensive amount of data out there that's just available if you subscribe to databases, and that's what this is. It's just a database.
And would we be able to find out, Dan mentioned that, Mallards wasn't quite on here yet, like what is the lag time? Like, is it a couple of years? Like, how current is the information? It'd be kind of nice to know at some point, just if we are gonna be promoting this or letting other people know about it.
I suspect that they keep their data up to date, so I would think that this is probably good for at least 6 months to a year, and then they'll obviously update it as they go. And we've come from a pretty difficult period of time over the last couple of years, so a lot of this information likely is going to be changing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but we just wanted to have something available, because if you're trying to attract a person to come into your business and work for you, but you have no idea what the wages are in the surrounding area or surrounding businesses that you might be competing with to draw that person in, this is just another resource that we wanted to have access to. And we're going to talk a little bit about it earlier or later in the meeting, but I'd love to have more up-to-date demographic information on our talent, on our labor shed. what's available, where are they coming from, how much are they making, that type of information. And this is one more way to get us closer to having some of that information.
Questions kind of lead up to one of my questions, which was, so having access to the information is one thing, and then kind of interpreting that and then understanding how that data may or may not apply to a business decision is maybe kind of the next question. And I think maybe you already answered it. Is Tyler available to kind of
Yes.
talk through, and that's part of the open to business function, is interpreting results and kind of making some decisions
Absolutely.
based on?
Yeah, it's really important for us to make sure that Tyler can help businesses navigate this, because honestly, there's so much information in this tool that it could be overwhelming, and they could get lost in here real easy trying to navigate it. So we want Tyler to sit down with them and say, okay, here's what you need to know, and here's where you go to find that information. And that's all through the CDA at no cost to the business as well.
Just to circle back on Commissioner Roberts' question about the data, I just looked at Size Up's company, and one of the FAQs does talk about where they pull their data from. It's census data, USPS data, Bureau of Labor Statistics, Census Bureau estimates, Bureau of Economic Analysis, Medicare, IRS, US Patent and Trademark Office. So it looks like they're getting a lot of these from the federal government, so as soon as they update, we're getting the update, but it looks like they have multiple data streams that they're kind of, aggregating up into this data set. So, just from a data standpoint, from what I've seen in sort of some of my past experiences looking at data sets before, this is probably the most comprehensive one that I've seen. Otherwise, you typically are seeing just little slivers of it all. But this really does give you that bigger picture from, based on this, the multiple sources that they're getting.
One last note on the program, which was really exciting. We had been talking for years with the chamber about a database for buildings for sale or rent. All of the Washington County information that's available is on there. That's really exciting. And with photos and all the information and cost per square foot and contact information, I think that's just terrific.
That's fabulous. You mentioned the chamber. Is this something that perhaps also Nanette should be kind of pushing out to chamber members and doing some awareness of? So, good.
Madam Chair, to that point, if I could just
Yeah,
briefly,
please.
the chambers have been instrumental, including Nanette, in helping us help our businesses here within the county. So we get together every couple of weeks and talk about what tools could we provide, and Nanette's been a valuable resource to helping us identify the things like this that we can get out to our businesses. And that's when we've talked a little bit in the past about the What's Next CEO program. This is part of that program. That this came as an initiative that we thought that information right now in this environment is really important. And so this came out of the discussions that we reached out to some different firms and came across this one, and we said we just need to do this and make it available. So, yep. So Nanette's been very, very critical in helping us gather this information and get it out to the members of the chamber.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Any other questions on this topic? Comments? All right. We'll move on to the Chisago County Labor Capacity Study presentation.
President, members of the EDA, again, this is on the agenda tonight, just as an awareness for the Chisago County Labor Assessment. This was completed in January of 2022 and was sponsored by the Chisago County HRA EDA, so I want to give them credit for doing this study. But I suppose one of the questions that you may be asking yourself is, why is a Chisago County study on a Forest Lake EDA agenda? There's a couple of reasons why. First reason is that Chisago County is our neighbor to the north, so we do share a border with Chisago County. And I think we look at labor capacity and kind of labor areas, they don't necessarily follow hard lines, they kind of blur a little bit, so there's a little bit they kind of pull from areas that are sort of outside of the geographic area of study. But this particular assessment also contains a regional analysis, so part of it they did the county specifically, but they also expanded it and did a regional analysis, and as part of that, it did encapsulate Washington County and Forest Lake as part of that. So that's one of the main reasons why it's on for discussion this evening. And also, just want the EDA to be familiar with what is included in a labor capacity assessment. And speaking with Chris, there's the possibility that Washington County is looking at undertaking one of these later this year or early next year. So just wanted the EDA to be aware of what is included in a labor capacity assessment. So that's the two main reasons why it's on for this evening. So to kind of start out with and kind of high level is what is a labor capacity assessment? And what these studies do is they provide some data behind what the labor market is for a particular area. These have become a critical component of some of the data that site selectors use when citing a location. I think historically it's been sort of the field of dreams, mentality. If you build it, the workers will come. But I think in the current labor market, labor shortages and making sure there's available talent is a main driver when you're looking at where selectors are placing manufacturing firms and warehousing and any other type of business that requires workers. So these studies and kind of when you can demonstrate to the selector that yes, we have the capacity here, it's not just me saying that, there's some data behind that, the site selectors do appreciate that. So there is a specific reason why you want to look at doing a labor capacity assessment. Now again, bear in mind when you look at a labor capacity assessment, these are point-in-time surveys. So as soon as they're done, the field changes because the market is constantly evolving, constantly changing. But the data that's there does have some shelf life to it. It's not one of those things where you've completed it in January and it's expired within 3 months. There is shelf life to them, but bear in mind they do represent a very specific point in time. But this one being 6 months old is still very, very current, and the data here is still valuable. One of the things I want to draw to, and I talked about the regionality of this specific study, is that if you look at page 4, this looked at the labor capacity for manufacturing. And we look at Chisago County, it says, based on their analysis that the chart, that 850 new jobs can be added in Chisago County before they expect a local labor market shortage or start having challenges filling positions. So what that tells a business is that there's plenty of capacity within the county to put a manufacturing firm within the county. But when you expand that out to include neighboring counties, with Washington County is included in that, that number jumps up to 2,400. So what you're seeing in there is on a regional basis, that expanded area, there's plenty of capacity to put manufacturing in this particular area. And if I was going to meet with a site selector, I would show them this slide and say, in the region there's 2,400, you could put 2,400 jobs in it before you start to see that, that shortage. That they take that back and they start looking at their own analysis. How many jobs am I going to bring in? Where can I recruit from? So that's where you start to see the benefit of these assessments. Same thing on warehousing and supply chain. And this really is, at this point, one of the hottest industry markets at this point. The industrial market, particular as it applies to warehousing and supply chain, it is probably the hottest sliver of the industrial market at this point. So by having this assessment in here, it's really appropriate from what the market's developing at this point. Looking at Chisago County, they have capacity for 700 new jobs within the county. But if you expand that out to the neighboring counties, again, Washington County is included, you're looking like you can add up to 3,300 new positions in warehousing and supply chain. That number may seem like a lot, but if you look at a couple of the larger projects, like if you're putting in a very large warehousing, they can easily take 1,000 to 1,500 to 2,000 jobs. So they do seriously look at what is the labor availability within a geographic area before they make a site selection, because even though there's 3,300 regionally, 1 or 2 projects could take care of that capacity very, very quickly. But again, it does confirm to those site selectors that yes, there is capacity within a specific area. I won't go through all the market segments because again, this really does apply more primarily to Chisago County. But what I wanted to highlight was just a couple of things on the commuter traffic. And what you see here, just trying to get my page here, is this the right page? Sorry, I highlighted my hard copy, but not the actual electronic copy. 19. So what you see here, this analysis, what it did provide is it kind of confirmed what we all know, that a lot of workforce within this area is commuting out to the metropolitan area. So you see a lot of commuters that are coming out. They do say that they do have some within the county that are going to those areas identified where there's the industrial centers within the county. But for the most part, those who are commuting out of the county. But what's more interesting to me than that is this next slide where Chisago County, for those that are commuting in, we're pulling areas from outside the county. Now, when I go to industrial conferences, land conferences, I've always said one of the reasons why Forest Lake competes differently than, say, a White Beaver or Roseville is the fact that we can reach out into Pine County, into west central Wisconsin. And this data set here does prove that that's happening in Chisago County, which then you can infer that that's happening in the northern part of Washington County as well. So not only when I go say that, I'm not just saying that, I can actually, there's some data that backs that up. So again, these assessments really tell those businesses not only what's currently there, but where they're drawing from. So if they're looking for a specific market segment, they can start to see where that potential talent lies. Again, the primary reason why this is on tonight was just for awareness. In talking to Chris, it looks like Washington County is exploring doing one assessment that's specific on for Washington County. And I think as you start to put these studies together, you're getting a more complete picture of overall workforce, not just in Forest Lake, but sort of regionally, which starts to fill in some of those data gaps that exist out here. I've always said we're sort of on the edge of data. Like if you're in White Bear, Roseville, you get a little bit more robust data sets. Out here, we're starting to see some of that kind of back off. But when you start looking at adding these labor assessments and what we just saw with the Size Up program, those gaps are getting filled with this data, which does makes Forest Lake compete more from those. If you're looking for businesses that are making data-driven decisions, we now have some of that background data, which is helpful for them. So this is on tonight just for EDA awareness, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding this or labor capacity assessments in general.
Thank you, Dan.
Just a comment or question. Amazon will be expanding into Hugo, and they're going to be hiring 200. Is that, do you think they'll be pulling them up from the metro area rather than us worrying about them pulling them down? We have no control over that, but
No control.
that's, yeah, that's,
My assumption would be a combination of both. I mean, I don't know where their exact site is. I know, is it Center? I thought it was Centerville.
yeah.
It's going to depend if it's on a bus route. I mean, you might get people from Metro coming out, but I think if this, if I just put on my quick analysis hat on this based on what I'm seeing here, my guess is that people would be coming down just because that seems to be sort of, that would fall in line with the trends that are in here from where the employees are located.
I don't know if, I don't really have a question here, but just maybe a comment for Chris. If Washington County is, considering this type of a study, I think it'd be helpful, just demographics of Washington County, or the geography of Washington County, to maybe consider a two-part chapter, North Washington County and South Washington County, just because I think from
Thank you, President Bain. That's a
geographic
great
standpoint,
question. We're
it's
actually
just such
looking
a
at
stretch.
splitting the county into 3 different study areas.
Even
So
better.
it would be north, including pretty much the Forest Lake School District, so Hugo, Forest Lake, Scandia. And then south, Cottage Grove, Woodbury,
Yep.
Oakdale. And then in the middle part, you've got Stillwater, Matamidi, Oak
Perfect.
Park Heights, Lake Elmo. And so we'd be looking at those 3 different separate study areas, but I think there's a lot of traveling between those areas as well. But as Dan mentioned earlier, we'd love to know what's happening over in western Wisconsin. I believe that there are a lot of people that are still commuting into Minnesota, but I think a lot of them may have changed since the pandemic, and so I'd love to know currently what's going on out there and be able to give that information. And just share some anecdotal information with you. Our largest employer in the county is Anderson Windows. I have over 3,000 employees right now countywide, and they are looking for an additional 500 people. And so we would love to know, where can we find that talent, and where are they coming from, how much do they make, what do they do, and just be able to share that with not only with Anderson, but all of the companies within the county. And this information will be made available for everyone.
Just due to the shape of our county, Washington County, it sure seems like that. I'm glad you're kind of dividing it up, because it seems like the southern part of Washington County would be a completely demographic difference from here.
Yeah, 41 miles long, so yeah, there are a lot of differences.
You're getting past the freeway and all that, and it just seems like it's a totally different area. So,
Yep.
good to hear.
Is that pretty far down the path of consideration and is something that, would you say, likely to be done, or maybe a little too prospective to say that?
You know, I'm honestly not sure, so
Understood.
we'll explore the
Okay.
options as we move a little bit further along, but the hope would be that if all goes well, this study would be done in December and made available in January, February of early next year, and be happy to bring that back to you. And we're not looking for any partnership financing. We'll provide this information to the businesses in the cities through the CDA as part of our economic development initiative, so, thank you.
Just one more thing, if you look at the firm that actually did this study as Cushman and Wakefield, I was talking to Nancy about this study, and she had commented that she wanted to get a firm that the real estate community would understand. Because I think when you look at some of these data processing companies, they can get completely in the weeds of stuff that may not be relevant to those making the decisions. I mean, not to say that their data is bad with other firms, but Cushman and Wakefield was able to package it up, I think, in a very digestible way that speaks the same language that the selectors are looking for. So that's one of the reasons why they went with this particular firm, was they said that industry is there, and then also like with those that did the study also have contacts within that. So if they're looking for somebody, you know, it can be one of those things, it's who they know within the industry as well.
Understood. Any other questions on this topic? Dan and Chris, thanks for bringing this forward. All right, next item tonight, city development update, and Abby.
Thank you, President Bain?
For tonight, for this, yes?
For this
Yeah.
is, okay. Well, for members of the EDA that I think we've met once in a joint workshop, I've been with the city for about 6 weeks now. And in terms of just a development update, I've reviewed all the processes, procedures, ordinances, everything you can kind of think of. And the good news is you have me here. The bad news is we're a little unprepared for some of the development that we're facing right now. And I think that it's a really good time to be evaluating these things and helping maybe look at streamlining some of our processes and procedures, not only for new businesses in development, but some of our existing businesses and our homeowners. So I just want to let you know, multifamily, single-family residence construction 2022 is down. At this time in 2021, we had about 220 units created. This year we have 14. I think a big factor in that is just industry and the climate, construction costs that have gone up. But we are planning for a number of residential properties. The Hidden Creek development has submitted their final plat, so that has a 2-phase development of 60 homes each. That gets approved this year. They do anticipate their hope is to start construction on those homes this year. We also have Goodview Preserve, and Birchwood Estates. They each have about 70 to 80 homes, but those would be looking at construction in 2023 and beyond. So that being said, residential market, not that great. Commercial market we've got a lot of interest in the commercial market right now. We're working on a review for Gertens, the phase 1 redevelopment of the Hools elevator site. So the reuse of the elevator itself is kind of a phase 1 of their project, converting most of that into retail use from the former elevator use. And then they'll come back for a phase 2 review process with us that will include some more site development, including just building out that site a little bit more into a commercial center that that we all kind of know as Gertens versus necessarily what's there today. We had some pending submittals, about a 150,000 square foot industrial manufacturing built campus. It'd be a 2-part, 2-building campus with a 3rd phase in the future. We're looking at a 32 resident senior memory care facility. That is just about to go into, I believe, building permitting. And then a 9-room childcare. I don't remember the number of units, but head count. I have a daughter that's in a 6-room childcare facility, and there's 96 in that facility. So I imagine it's going to be a very large, varying ages, but we can get that for you. Those last 2, the memory care facility, the child care facility, are all in that Headwaters development. I think everybody knows, right along the corner of 61 and Headwaters Parkway. We've had some inquiries talking with people about the airport business park parcel that the city owns. And then also just expansion of a local prominent contracting services provider. They have outgrown their space and are looking at 15 to 25 acres. So we're trying to find a new site to keep them in Forest Lake. I'm moving forward with the hiring of a planner so that we can kind of fill that role that Donovan had to help the city kind of stay on top of some of the basic zoning increase, but also this development world. And then also looking at options for some part-time or temporary administrative support. But we'll be kind of looking at what kind of staffing needs that the development department's going to need to not only serve planning and zoning, but also help serve economic development, park and recreation as well in the future. Any questions for me?
Questions for Abby? Go ahead.
This might be more general to Patrick and Dan. So when Donovan had left, we talked about the EDA taking on a part of his budget for a person. And I think there might have been a change somewhere there, and or maybe not, but like what the roles are and what Dan's role would be in economic development versus Abby, and then maybe this new person, just maybe a review of that.
Yeah, the long-term vision is for Abby to lead the economic development side of this. Obviously, Dan will support, but then the planner position will do some of the nuts and bolts stuff that Donovan did. And we'll continue to evaluate that. We realize that both planning and EDA kind of been shortchanged as far as the staffing-wise goes, and we need to see what's the next step, but get Abby involved here, get a planner involved, and then see where we go from there. I still would estimate probably another person is going to be needed somewhere soon, a year, 2 years, 6 months maybe. It all depends. Again, development, depending on the economy, which is who knows where it's going at this point, that may slow down development or it may increase development depending on which way it goes. So not a big change, but just everybody getting used to new roles and like Abby said, finding the things that we haven't been able to do in the past and doing them right and doing them efficiently. And if we can get those things done, then we can look and see if we need staff or how many staff we need. So it's a process, really.
And then a follow-up question on the Hool site. There's some city land involved in that. Are we looking to sell that to?
We are in discussions with the Curtins. There's 2 lots that the city owns. One is at the northwest corner and one is down south. We're talking to them both. We are waiting for an appraisal to be completed at the end of the month so that we can continue discussions not only on the sale or swapping of those properties, depending on what we want, but also the phase 2 development, which will include those 2 properties.
And are we foreseeing watershed district issues right there?
No, I don't think so. The only thing I think that we have to, if I remember the meetings, is they'll have to do stormwater issues, but it shouldn't be too difficult, so.
Well, welcome, Abby.
Thank you.
Other questions for Abby? All right. Thank you for the update, Abby. All right, let's move on to downtown plan next steps. Dan.
President, members of the EDA, wouldn't be a 2022 EDA meeting if we didn't talk about the downtown plan, so keeping that tradition going for 2022. Just want to talk about the next steps, where we are in the process. We're very near to completing the planning process at this point. We did hold public comment in open house on June 2nd. We had over 60 residents attend that. For a summertime meeting, the attendance blew my expectations for the open house. Got some good feedback, had some good questions asked. We also had public comment online that was open through last Friday. So Bruce is now taking all of those comments and feedback that was received at the open house and online and is working to incorporate that into what he's calling the draft final version. So what was released before was the draft version of the plan, and now he's looking at the draft final version. He's hoping to have that done here in June. And once I have that, I will release that out to the EDA for review. But from a kind of a next step sequencing standpoint, the plan at this point is to bring back the plan before the EDA and Downtown Committee, the first meeting in July on the 11th. for final review and a motion of support for from the EDA/Downtown Committee. From there, it'll move to the Planning Commission, so Planning Commission will review it, and then we'll be asking them for a motion of support as well on the 13th. And then from there, it goes to the Parks, Lakes, and Trail Committee on the 20th for their review, and we'll ask them for motion of support as well. And then it'll finally, on July 25th, go before the City Council for adoption. And then we'll be done with the planning standpoint, and we'll start working on the steps that are incorporated in the plan and really getting that execution started on the plan. So for tonight, just looking to see, are we missing anything in the plan overall? We've had a lot of time digging and kind of collecting feedback on the plan. Does the EDA feel that we're missing anything from the plan? Any last sort of comments that we need to pass along to Bruce? Again, not asking for formal action tonight. I will ask for that formal action on the 11th, but this is sort of the last chance for the EDA to give me any type of feedback that you want me to relay back to Bruce. I'm happy to do that after this meeting. So with that, I'm happy to open it up and take any feedback that the EDA has on the downtown plan or any questions.
I'll maybe just jump in to provide some context around feedback that we got from the presentation that we did to the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission. Lots of feedback from the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission, and maybe the two primary points of feedback that stand out in my mind that feedback coupled with some of the online feedback I think we've received, and I think also some of the feedback we've received from some of the tone of the public meeting on June 2nd would be, and I want to be kind of specific on where feedback's coming from. So primarily coming from Parks, Trails, and Lakes, I would say we might want to remove from the plan consideration of moving the boathouse, or it might want to change the direction in the plan related to the boathouse to be more specific of, rather than considering use of nearby retail property, which is the Gun building adjacent, which is kind of currently built into the plan, that we would instead, the first phase would be to look at the existing building and look to use that existing space and to see if there's an opportunity to use that existing space for both warming house and bathroom facilities. There might be a tipping point where warming house, that space is insufficient and you might need to go a different direction, but right out of the gate, just to recommend moving that boathouse or the bathroom space. I think the word that was used in the plan or in the meeting that made me cringe a bit was, it seemed frivolous. If we've got a good space, why would we consider renting space? And I think there's some merit to that feedback. The other piece of feedback that they were pretty strong in is really, they're really reluctant and would really discourage us from moving the playground space. That space was recently resurfaced. There's been a lot of money put into that space in the last couple of years. And of all of the needs of the park, that seems to be one of the better functioning areas. And to relocate that just seemed to be financially disruptive. And also to take what is today a very self-contained portion of the park geared for small children, to put that into a larger space that is maybe more wide open, perhaps present some larger issues with, parents being able to keep, control of kids. That for all of those reasons, they were pretty clear that they did not think that should be part of the plan. So unless there were some compelling reason on why we should continue to keep that, based on their feedback, I think we should consider pulling that out of this existing draft. So wanted to be transparent on that feedback that we came in, and also provide, we're gonna be in this portion here over the next several weeks where we've got sources of input, people providing input, and also potentially the plan changing as that input is coming in. And so we're in that fast iteration phase where I think the best we can do is to just openly communicate areas of the plan that might be changing, so that folks feel heard, and also when we are looking for motions of support, people feel like that feedback has been heard and iterated back into the plan. So I'll pause there after some feedback on Parks, Lakes, and Trails, and interested in hearing other thoughts from either.
Well, the only comment I'd have about the boat ramp, first of all, there's no way that it would ever move unless we had another spot already set up, which would be just about impossible here in the city of Forest Lake. And I don't know where that would even possibly be. So I don't know if removing it necessarily means anything, or if keeping it necessarily means anything. But at least, I think the idea, or at least if it was a feasible thing someplace down the road, I think we should consider it. But the idea that it's gonna happen tomorrow or anytime
Right.
is pretty slim, really.
Yeah.
So, because it would have to be a really ideal situation. So,
I would echo the same comment, just going to those meetings, that seemed to be the hot topic button, and so I think just financially and the fact that people really don't, I mean, I understand some people are fine with it, but it seemed as though the majority wanted it to stay, or at least be somewhere close, and I know the trailer parking is an issue, but it really is a downtown driver. It drives traffic downtown. There might be some people that don't believe it, but people are coming and going out of that area. Just you have people coming and going, there is a slight chance they're gonna buy something. I know some people don't believe that, they think they're packing the cooler up and going back to Blaine and not coming and stopping in town, it's better having a chance that they drive by than not them driving by at all. So I think having that is a driver, we just need to, in my opinion, find a alternative spot for the parking, the trailer parking.
that'd be the problem.
Yeah, that also is, as I've heard more feedback from both the community open house session and then feedback afterwards, is people seem to be very open to, yes, consider moving the trailer parking, consider even having that on the other side of 61. If we could relocate the trailer parking, seems to be more of an appetite towards that than actually moving the site altogether. As from a process standpoint, Dan, so I know that there's the feedback, I think, closed on, was it Friday? Was
Friday,
the online
correct,
feedback?
yep.
And so as we're going into this period of kind of quick iteration, could that feedback be summarized and kind of sent out to all kind of members that are going to be looking at the plan? It'd be good for everyone to understand kind of a summary both of a kind of quantity of feedback that was provided on the open house, and then kind of a summary of the online feedback. I think that'd be great information for everyone to hear. And then what's the plan to kind of make a final draft based on that feedback?
So he's doing a draft final, right? He'll take all that feedback and then make whatever, if he needs to, and again, I'm kind of making an educated guess as to what his structure or strategy is for this, but I think if it's feedback he may just incorporate, we got feedback from, on this particular item, but if it requires a structural plan change, he'll go back in and make that structural plan change and maybe note or footnote where that change came from. But once all that's done, that's when the draft final will get released. So you'll see sort of, it'll look slightly different. I think a lot of the information, like the backgrounding and the chapters that you see online, will stay very much the same, but I think the implementation strategy and maybe some parts of the plan might have some wording changes associated with it. Like, so for example, with the removing of the possibility of leasing out space, in the building, that's gonna represent a plan change to that particular chapter. But maybe the playground might not just be a footnote on the thing saying not in support of roads, that'll just get pulled off the draft final plan that gets released. Also on the feedback side, I forgot to mention that Washington County has reviewed the plan. Their traffic engineers have reviewed it, their traffic team have reviewed it, and provided comments as well that have been forwarded over. So we did also look at other agencies to have them take a look and review and provide feedback on that. So that has been received and has been forwarded to Bruce as well for incorporation into the draft final plan.
Awesome. Any chance of having MnDOT review of that, or DNR, or any other stakeholder?
I can see if, I know Bruce had contacted the DNR. I'll see if he actually sent it over to them, and I don't know about MnDOT. We went to Washington County with the possibility of that getting turned back to Washington County. That's where we started with for their feedback on that. So that's why I said at the county level.
Dan, so obviously we can't continue to have Bruce come back with different drafts of this. Do you have any sense of any pushback from him, like we need to sunset this thing sooner than later, or is there pressure to make that happen? Because it seems as though we should have, after that all this community feedback, it seems like one more downtown committee meeting or something just to discuss that. Because as it stands right now, especially the boat launch and kind of in play and still, maybe this part, I'd have a hard time recommending it to the council.
And I think, and to that point with the 11th, if, we'll get the draft final up prior to the meeting, and if we need to use that for more kind of last time feedback and kick that recommendation back to the 25th, or we have that fall back onto the 25th, because there is a EDA meeting in advance of the 25th there as
And the
well.
27th,
Excuse me, I must have the wrong dates on there.
June 27th?
No, July 25th. We're in July.
Correct. To Blake's point, do we have a downtown meeting on June 27th?
We can, I don't have Bruce coming back for it. I mean, if you're fine with me presenting the changes or having a meeting with Bruce, we're trying to run that, we're sort of we're bumping up against a little bit on the billables that we have for the plan. If he gives me the draft before the 27th, I can go through the changes, because he will communicate those changes out to me. We can kind of use that meeting for the last sort of check-in on that if the EDA so wants.
I feel like the downtown committee could use a working session just to digest the information that's been heard. That downtown committee hasn't met since the open house, right? I keep looking to make sure I have my dates correct here. So I think to do a working session would be helpful, just to gather remaining feedback, gauge temperature, kind of ask the same questions you're asking of us tonight, but I think to the larger downtown group would be helpful, because then conceivably the next time that the EDA meets, we will be looking for a resolution of support.
And I'll also confirm with Bruce if he can attend that. I just know that the last couple of times, maybe remote attendance or something like that. Because he was a couple of times we had to switch to remote setting because he was sort of like just trying to watch those billables for us.
Yeah, understand. And I'm not sure we need, I'm just thinking out loud here, I'm not sure we need so much him presenting us information. I think we need a working session to walk through it as a group and to just, ask the questions, really, ask the questions about, review together the community feedback that was online, and then to walk through some of the items that have come out from the parks meeting and also from the open house.
I can get that added for the 27th.
I think otherwise, without doing that, we run some risk of getting some negative feedback on the 11th, and then everyone's in scramble mode. And also then you will have been prepared to present to planning and parks, trails, and lakes, and so. A little bit more than dotting i's and crossing t's. So I think there's still some detail to discuss, but I think it's a good opportunity to at least see where folks are, where we're on the same page and where we're not.
I'll make sure Bruce gets the draft final out before the 27th, because I just told him in June, for that, and he was agreeable that the schedule worked for him from a timing perspective, but I'll just confirm that we can get that out prior to the meeting on the 27th, so everybody has a chance to review it.
Yeah, and then maybe even if that meeting can be recorded, so if there are meaty parts that he does need to watch to get the right context, it's available.
From a recording standpoint, and I know this room is not the best sometimes for a workshop or a feedback session, but it does from a recording standpoint. It makes it easier for us to record, so maybe we just hold that in here,
Oh, yep, and we can invite folks to sit at the staff tables, yeah. Go ahead.
Is there any way to put in that meeting, that workshop, somebody addressing the financial end of it? Because there were comments about, is this pie in the sky, is this feasible? And we haven't addressed that, have we?
Yeah, so his sources of revenue, sources of revenue, or I forget what he was calling that portion of his analysis, but he was still drafting that. Will he have that done by that final draft?
I will ask. I'm assuming he will, but it's an assumption at this
Yeah.
point. I'll confirm if we can. I'll ask him if we can get updated on the financial side of it as well for that meeting.
I think the reality too is it's a 10-year concept plan, and a lot of the financials are going to be some pretty broad estimates, so. Go ahead.
And then, so that additional study on the Vanelli corner, whatever you call it, is that gonna be done that's after the fact, or will that be coming forward at this, by the time we come to the end of this, or?
It's close to being, I mean, we've met, you know, and discussed some concepts on there, you know, and I believe portions of it have been included will be included in the draft final, but I don't know if we'll have everything finalized before 27th.
Yeah, the reason we brought that is so that it would mix into the plan. We have a long way to go speaking with the developer who wants to develop it, so it's kind of hard to say that that will be a real clear picture. You know, there's a lot of moving parts with MnDOT or the county or the city and the city-owned land and how tall it's going to be, so we'll try to get a little bit of it in there, but you're not going to have a lot of meat to that yet. We've got quite a lot of discussion still pending before we figure out how the final look at that's going to be.
Are there some things still that maybe we could incorporate around like potential traffic patterns? Or, you know, we kind of talked about the tie of that property to the parkway that we've done to potential parking on the northern portion of the park. Is there even like that portion of it that is worth having?
Depending on the final design will dictate the traffic patterns,
Yeah, it's
obviously.
chicken and
We
egg,
don't know
isn't
that.
it?
So, I mean,
Yeah.
we can, can say that should there be parking there, should there be no parking there? Take into consideration the pathway that it's designed in the plan. How does that affect what that's going to look like? But again, until we really get to close to a final concept there, it's going to be pretty hard for us to tell you how that's going to look or how that's going to affect the plan. But we're going to try to incorporate as much of the downtown plan the way it's been presented, but that still may have to be tweaked as well. So we just won't have a lot to tell you, to be honest with you.
Okay. Any other questions or things we're missing perhaps as part of moving this towards the final couple of yards here? All right. Moves us on to other city updates. Anybody else have any other city updates? I will, no, am I seeing head shake? Okay. I will say, note that we do have 2 open EDA positions. Member Finneman had previously decided that when we were close to being done with the downtown plan, that he was going to end his term, and he has done that. And then also Judy Huntosh has moved and has also had to resign her position. So we do have 2 open seats. I do have a couple of fabulous candidates in mind. However, I don't have acceptances yet, and so open to other recommendations. I'm happy to meet folks that might be interested for coffee to talk about what a position might look like, answer any questions. And so good opportunity to me to make the ask to put your recruiter hats on, and we've got a lot of activity happening, and so really need to get these seats filled, so. All right, Chris, Washington County update.
Thank you, President Bain and members. Just a couple of quick things for you. I just want to remind you that we do have a $600,000 EPA grant available, and I would love to do some assessments here in the city. Dan and I have talked about a couple different options, but just know that the CDA can fund 100% of the cost of the assessment. So phase 1, phase 2 environmental review, soil testing, if it's a building, lead or asbestos testing, those types of things. So I'd love to be able to do a couple of projects here if you've got some in mind. And again, it's 100% funded by the EPA.
You said EPA?
Federal EPA. Yep. Yep, just wanted to mention again that we did recommit to the Minnesota Technology Corridor. The website is going to continue. It's going to be refreshed. We're going to have a new color scheme, new map. The sites and stuff that we've talked about will stay the same. The marketing efforts will stay the same. Our hope would be that we could get it out to more interested parties and continue to market the Minnesota Technology Corridor for high-tech, high-wage-paying manufacturing, data centers, basically anybody that would need a lot of fiber and a lot of power to do their type of business. And so we're optimistic that we can attract somebody. COVID obviously put a damper on the development of data centers, so we're still trying to market to high-tech companies. And ideally, if we could bring in a high-wage paying, high-tech manufacturing company, I think that'd be wonderful. And of course, you got the site that we could continue to market. So we'll continue to work with our partners at Connexus Energy in Anoka County and continue to keep you updated on that as well.
Thank you.
Let's see, just real briefly, the What's Next CEO program. I talked a little bit about our intent is to continue to help provide business advisory services and resources to our small businesses coming out of a pandemic, going into a recession. How do you navigate that when you're dealing with supply chain challenges, inflation challenges, and availability of talent challenges? It's going to be complicated, and we want to make sure that we can answer those questions. And so we're bringing on another business advisor to help Tyler to provide more resources than what the Open to Business program does. And that's funded through the ARPA program that the county contributed $200,000 to the CDA to bring in an additional business advisor and then work with the chambers to market those services across the county. So pretty excited about that. If all goes well, we'll start in August by providing enhanced and additional services throughout the county. Our budget for 2023 is looking about the same. It'll be flat for economic development, but we will continue to fund the Open to Business program, the Pre-Development Finance Fund, and our marketing initiatives like the economic development summits that we've held through the Minnesota Real Estate Journal. And I should mention there's one coming up, Dan and Abby, on September 7th. It's the Suburban Development Summit. It'll be in Golden Valley, and our hope would be to continue to tell the story that we've got land and talent, and we want to attract businesses and help them find sites here in the county, work with them to expand and relocate their businesses here in the county. So September 7th is the next one that we'll have an opportunity to speak on a panel and be able to market and have a display booth in the entry area. So I'm looking forward to that. But our budget for 2023 is going to be flat, continuing to offer the same programs and services that we've done over the last 3 to 4 years. So, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Good, thank you so much.
Thanks for your partnership.
Yeah, much appreciated. Thank you. And do you have anything for the chamber?
We had our June mixer at the Forest Hills restaurant, which is under new management. Food is terrific. And the next big event is our annual golf tournament on Monday, July 25th.
Thank you. And that being our final item on the agenda this evening, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second, and all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? And we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.